So the last couple of minutes I need for 1D waveguide. So we just continue that thing. This 1D waveguide, as usual, Z. This is Y. This is your X. X. And this is X equal to 0. So X equal to D. And NF, NS, NC. And let us stick with TE mode guidance. So electric field will have your 0, EY, 0, and magnetic field will be BX, 0, BY. And we know their solutions, and we know how to solve guided mode. We know how to solve beta M, and we know how to solve electric field distribution, and then ultimately we know how that will be. This profile we know we have to calculate that one, right, from the boundary condition. Now next question is that it can be a multi-mode waveguide, fundamental mode, first order mode, depending on your dimension, number of modes will be guiding. Now if I ask you a quick question, any modes for T polarization, you will have these three components. You have UY, BX, BZ. This is BZ. So the question is power carried by a mode. Mode means guided mode basically.
Sir, yesterday you described the optical waveguide as a high-pass filter.
Yeah.
But like optical waveguide carries only some number of a fixed number of modes.
Right.
So won't it be like a band-pass filter?
I never said that it is a band pass filter. It's a high pass filter.
Huh. Like shouldn't it act like a band-pass filter because it only allows some modes?
Okay. So you want that if it is possible that waveguide should act as a band pass filter? I think normally simple straight waveguide you cannot. Just normal design of the waveguide you cannot. But we'll discuss that. I think whatever waveguide we are discussing here, that is a conventional optical waveguide. Mostly you can explain based on the total internal reflections, and light is confined in the core region where refractive index is higher. But in course of time you will see that this optical waveguide also can be designed with a different configuration. You perhaps heard about photonic crystal waveguide. So photonic crystal waveguide, it will actually act for waveguide for a certain band of frequencies. We'll discuss that, and that is not entirely rely on total internal reflection, completely different physics. That is one thing. And another thing is called slot waveguide, also you have heard probably. So instead of mode, the field strength, that's a maximum field strength confined in the core region where refractive index is higher, we'll find that there are certain kind of geometry. You can actually see maximum power will be confined in the lower refractive index core region. So core will be like a lower refractive index surrounded by the higher refractive index material with certain geometry. That is called slot waveguide. Those are actually different type of waveguides. There we'll see that they are actually bandwidth, just some certain band it can operate. And as far as conventional waveguide is concerned, it can have a lower cutoff frequency. That means it carry higher frequencies, means longer wavelengths. Okay. Sorry, shorter wavelengths. Higher frequency it will be carrying. It will be guiding. Is that clear for the moment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it's a conventional waveguide. You cannot expect something like band pass type of thing. It's just kind of a lower cutoff frequency you will have. So now I have a waveguide and I have the solutions of feasible solutions for guided modes. And that guided modes, if you just concentrate for T polarization, I know that the electric field, if you just consider, that will be only Y component for T polarization, and it has a distribution confinement along X direction. Maximum will be there in the core region, and both cladding region, it will be decaying exponentially. And if it is a mth mode, I write this one mth mode, and then phase part we will be writing e to the power j omega t minus beta mz. Beta m is the propagation constant for the mth mode, and this is the distribution for the mth mode. This actually gives you your ey or e field. I think I would say e field is this one, and here I will be doing this. All the modes, higher order modes, m equal to 0, m equal to 1, m equal to 2, they will have only ey component, and they will have only bx component and bz component. That means magnetic field is in the xz plane. So up to this point it is clear, right? Now if I want to have a certain mode, say mth mode, that can be 0 or that can be 1, that can be 2, and so on. So I want to know how much power it can carry. How much power it can carry? What is your guess?
Mod em square by 2. Mod e square by 2.
No, you answer to the point. If I ask you a mode, how much power it can carry? Just 1 milliwatt, 2 milliwatt, 5 milliwatt, 1, or just any number?
Discrete number, sir, because electric field is discrete.
You just answer to the point. Yeah, I said how much power can be carried by a mode, that means feasible solution. How much power you can actually load onto it? 1 milliwatt, 2 milliwatt, 5 milliwatt, any number?
1 milliwatt, sir. Lower, because of higher the power, linear effect will be there.
So that means if I want to design a waveguide mode, I want to carry 1 watt. That's not possible.
It is possible, sir, but it won't be possible for longer distances. Loss associated with waveguide can be high.
Yeah, loss
It's
will
a
be
high
there.
power.
So yeah, one thing I should give you the idea, if there is a loss for practical waveguide, so I can just add one more term, e to the power minus alpha z. Okay, alpha, if it is some loss is there, something exponentially normally you can model, because in that case loss, absorption, anything is there, you can consider that your effective index is also will come as a solution like a complex. It will have a real and it will have a imaginary. So real part will give you the propagation constant, imaginary part will give you attenuation, I discussed earlier, right? So that is the loss part will be there, that is fine. So loss is there if it is 1 milliwatt power is there, that is loss is there. If it is 1 watt, that there will be also loss. What's the problem? So this is your loss factor. My question is that theoretically, will there be a lower limit or there will be a higher limit, or what else? How you are thinking for the moment? Because ultimately you are learning all this just to think about that to design a waveguide for practical applications. And when you talk about practical applications, you have to think of many things, right? I need to carry 1 watt. I need to carry 1 gigawatt. I need to carry maybe just 1 picowatt. Is that any mode? Just I design a waveguide that is suitable for any power level I want.
Yes, sir. That is in terms of band gap. Then I have to consider this Eg.
No,
If
why band
energy,
gap? Band gap means lambda is something we are considering it is transparent.
okay,
It's a band gap is sufficiently wide. You are choosing monochromatic wave, and yeah, some laser at certain wavelength, which is actually transparent. No band gap. That means no photon absorption is there.
sir,
It's a
my
valid.
mind is just E should be power should be less such that my E doesn't excite nonlinear effect. That is
Yes, that's a
that.
point. That's a point. That means you see, whenever we discussed earlier, there is one thing we explained: D, displacement vector, equal to epsilon E, right? And epsilon E is nothing but epsilon 0, 1 plus chi E. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Remember that this one we have expressed as epsilon R, and that is actually, whenever I am using this one, this is called linear optics. But there will be a situation, basically this we write like that: epsilon 0 E plus polarization. What is this polarization? This polarization we are writing like a epsilon 0 chi times E. So this P is the polarization, dipole moment per unit volume, equal to epsilon 0 chi times E, and that is called E, chi E, called susceptibility or electronic susceptibility. That is a material property, and that material property actually depends on it is actually the polarization actually depends on, it's a proportional to E field of the applied electromagnetic wave or whatever. Now this is called linear terms, linear. So as far as you can consider linear things, so you can use this one, and whatever the analysis so far we are doing, that is true. But most of the time this polarization actually will have PL plus P nonlinear. So sometimes this thing will be expressed like that: epsilon 0 and chi 1 E plus chi 2 EE plus chi 3. It is something like that. You are expanding the polarization as a function of electric field in Taylor series. So these are the differential coefficients: first order differential coefficient, second order differential coefficient, and so on. So in that case, that this chi 2, chi 3, all those type of thing will be dominant when your electric field, because normally chi 1 will be greater than chi 2 be greater than chi 3. This is the normal case, so on. So when more and more electric field strength is there, then you cannot ignore this chi 2, chi 3 terms. So once you use chi 2, chi 3 terms, then you see it's a kind of two electric field we are writing together, and they are vector. Then if they are two vectors you are writing like a multiplication, they are not, you have to think whether there is a dot product or cross product or something like that. In this case, you will be considered like a tensor. Chi is like a tensor. So in spite of that, whenever two fields are there, that two fields can come from two different frequencies also. They can be same frequency, they can be two different frequencies. The electric field origin from the two different frequencies. Three fields, three different frequency, same frequency, two of them same, third one is different. So all those type of things will be there. Then that when you multiply, that time you will get omega 1 plus omega 2, omega 1 minus omega 2, omega. So multiple frequencies can be generated. So those are nonlinear domain. And so those things has to be considered. Nonlinearity has to be considered. So for the moment, we will be ignoring that nonlinear things. So in principle, if we ignore nonlinearity, that means chi 2, chi 3, everything is just kind of ideal 0. Okay. So in that case, theoretically, I don't have any limit how much power I can load into a mode, right? It can be small, as small as equivalent to 1 photon per second per unit area, whatever photon energy you can imagine, to large amount of power you can consider. Theoretically, there is no bar, as long as nonlinearity can be ignored. Okay, so that much is there. Now my question is that there is no things are power limit, but depending on the power, I think this field strength will depend. So if it is 1 milliwatt, you will have a certain field strength and it will have a distribution X. Similarly, you will have a Bx distribution, Bz distribution for that particular power level. So when I talk about power carried by electromagnetic wave, I think you must be remembering something to consider. What is that, you know? A power carried by a electromagnetic wave. For that, we use a very well-known famous theorem.
Pointing.
Yeah, Poynting theorem, right? So I think that Poynting theorem means it comes from the energy conservation. Any electromagnetic wave propagating in a material medium, then you have to see energy conservation. How much power coming in and how much power dissipated into the material and how much power diverging out of the material medium, out that particular medium. So just considering that energy conservation point of view, you can say that anywhere, any point, power flow per unit area is actually expressed by, what is the expression, you know that, right?
Half real part of E cross H.
So why not? I think normally they are E cross H, right? E cross
Yes,
H is
sir.
the power flow. This is the normal in any electromagnetic.
H star, sir.
Y star, suppose Y star you need.
In this case, it's not because it is like no. We need to take H star.
Why? I think normally when I deal with I think any electromagnetics book, if you see Poynting vector, power flow, that means this is the thing we get, energy flow per unit area per unit time at any point. That is Poynting theorem, right? That is the value we get from the Maxwell's equation. And normally it is E cross H. Sometimes you are right that sometimes people use E cross H star. Why is that, you know?
To separate out the real part.
You know, why you not need to consider complex? E and H can be real. So this small thing you need to think whenever you are designing a photonics devices, etc. This small thing you need to understand. Sometimes people use E cross H star. Not only E cross H star, something else also they add. I think you might be considering that something half real part of E cross H star. That is the power flow. Normally it is considered in some textbook, right? But
Yes,
the from theory point of view, it is energy conservation point of view comes like E cross H.
Yes, sir.
Why you suddenly use this half? Why again half also? And E cross H star you have to take, and then whatever you get, then real part you have to take. You know, normally electric field and magnetic field, we have seen that they need not be in phase, right? Electric field and magnetic field, if it is not free space, they can go out of phase also, because their relationship is that E by eta equal to H, is not it?
Yes, sir.
That is the relationship we get from Maxwell's equation. And this eta, you know, that is the I already discussed also. Eta actually, it involves epsilon, it involves sigma, it is a complex, it can be complex in a material medium. So if it is complex, then it is for sure E and H, they may be considered Complex means you can represent that in phasor form, some phase and some amplitude. So that means electric field and magnetic field can go out of phase. So that means electric field, magnetic field also, if you consider express them in complex form, easier to handle. So that is mathematically to handle easily phase, amplitude, etc. we have to represent them in complex form. It should have a real part, it should have an imaginary part, a plus j beta things. Then anytime its magnitude, if you want to get square root of a square plus b square, real terms and imaginary, and it will have an angle, phase angle also. So that has to be considered. So if that phase angle, if you are just considering, and you consider it is a real part, ultimately when you measure something, so you measure some power flowing, that is a real thing. That cannot be complex. If complex power term also people use, you know what purpose? Anytime have you heard complex power?
Yes, sir. It is taken as active power and
Yes, active power and what do you call that? Reactive power.
reactive. Yes.
So actual power and reactive power. Reactive power actually, that is actually something, you know, in a circuit transmission line, you know, it is just imaginary part. That power actually not really dissipative. That is actually stored in the system. Power sometimes shuttle back and forth between capacitance and reactance, inductance. So that power is called reactive power. And whatever power actually it is flowing out, that is actually your real power. So if I write this thing, that is actually coming out as a real power, which is actually flowing out of the system. And if you just consider E and H is a real thing, and if you calculate this one, then whatever value you got complex term, E and H complex term, and there after multiplication, taking complex conjugate, multiply that, and then that will be a complex also. Then if you take a real part and you divide it by 2, then you get this is the average power flow. Normally, if it is cos omega t, multiplying it is also cos omega t, then you have to multiply, it will be getting cos square omega t. If there is a phase difference, if it is there, then you have to take average 0 to t divided by 1 by t, right? So that actually gives you half. And complex, if you are using, you multiply that one and then take real part, half of that, then it is equivalent to your real thing. So that is the reason actually you need to use power flow in a electromagnetic system, electromagnetic wave. That is actually average power flow can be expressed. Average power flow means power flow, that means watt per centimeter square, for example, something like that. Joule per second is watt, right?
Sir, this average power is what we need because for measuring like whatever devices we have, it measures only the average power, sir, right?
Yes.
To measure power.
Why not instantaneous power?
Generally, the devices show the average.
The device
Power.
cannot show the instantaneous power. Now one power, next moment it can be different power.
Generally, it doesn't show.
Why?
No.
So have you seen any power meter that measuring some kind of laser light, for example, or any electromagnetic wave? You just come, now power it is showing 1 watt, and after 2 minutes you come back, it is showing maybe a little different. For example, you know that your mobile phone you just consider. Sometimes you don't get signal. That means power not receiving by your antenna, right? Power, that is a power meter. You can consider power meter, right? So when it is measuring less, that's why you are not getting your signal perfectly. So that's the electromagnetic wave, right? So it is showing the power variation, it is showing. What do you mean by average power?
Like in generally in power meters, we only calculate it like the power meter shows the average flow, right?
Why it is so? You are right, but I am asking that why it is not able to show instantaneous power.
Instantaneous power requires a lot of data to save in it.
So you can measure. What is the problem?
Sir, electronics bandwidth is lower than optical bandwidth, maybe.
So I want time. I want, okay, okay. bandwidth is it's kind of right answer. What do you mean by bandwidth?
Like the frequencies they operate at.
Yes. So thing is that how fast it can show the change in power. Okay. Suppose your power is fluctuating, varying, and it is very fast. Your device can respond that fast or not. That is one important thing. Normally, you see here, if E is equal to cos omega t, H equal to also cos omega t, for example, you have cos square omega t, you can divide into, you can just cos square omega t, you can just find it cos 2 omega t and so on, right? So that means your power is supposed to vary with twice as high frequency as the original frequency of the electromagnetic wave, right? So that frequency, you can imagine that electromagnetic wave, particularly light wave, the frequency is 200 terahertz, about 200 terahertz, 200 terahertz. That means 200 times 10 to the 12, right?
Yes,
10
sir.
to, yeah. So that much. That means in 1 second, 200 multiplied by 10 to the 200 times. That means 10 to the 14 times it will vary in 1 second. Power fluctuation, power oscillations will take place 10 to the 14 times per second. So that type of respond, your device and photo detector, everything, they cannot respond. So what you measure, that is something like that RMS value, average value, right? Something you measure, okay, particular time period, whatever the value is. Normally what you know, this RMS value or average value, whatever you get, normally that you can get. Yeah. Okay, not exactly average, RMS value you will be getting. It's because photo detectors, everything is it follows a square law things that I will discuss later probably. So for the moment, it is something average. You are right. It's an average power. It cannot follow the frequency, such a high frequency. If the variation is very slow, then it is possible. If it is microsecond, nanosecond, or something like that, that type of variations is possible. So that is that variation you are actually exploiting for your communication, right? You are changing the power in gigahertz range or something like that, on off switching in the gigahertz range. So the gigabit per second communication you are getting, but not that frequency. You cannot reach to terahertz frequency. No device discovered so far which can detect a terahertz range change, instantaneous things. Okay, so that's why you need average things. So average power. So we have to see what is the average value. So if you are taking average, then it will be like this complex term, and that will be the actual value you will be getting. Correct, right? Now, my question is that I have these components, and suppose I know this thing, this EYX, for example, if I just consider that is something like that, the maximum EF, something cos kappa F X minus phi A, something like this, right? X dependent thing. And you have the field, if you see normally fundamental mode, if you are just considering, you have maximum maybe in the middle, and then you have exponential decay is there. So that means you have a field distribution will be like this, and on the top of it, it will be varying like a cos omega t or sin omega t variation. This is your field strength. This is your field strength, and this is your exposition. I'm just considering. So maximum will be somewhere in the center, and then it will be decaying. X dependent things are there. And this thing, I am sure that power is not flowing in this direction, right? X direction, it should not flow. Then it is not a mode. It is not a guided mode. Only power flowing in this direction. And I know that this is your EY component I'm getting there in this zone. And in this zone, another mode, exponential decaying. In this zone, exponential decaying. I know their profile. Their profile I have just expressed, right? ES, e to the power gamma S X, and EC, e to the power minus gamma C, X minus D, X, sorry, this is the correct thing. So that is the three region. We know this is the thing. And we know what could be the relationship between EF, ES, and EC. You can consider EF is normalized 1. And if once you consider EF is maximum 1, normalized 1, then you can consider whatever the value is and what is and EC. So this is just for handling mathematical equation. I think it is easier to use 1 for EF. But how to distinguish if I have a power carried by this mode, say 1 milliwatt or 2 milliwatt or 5 watt? What change I need? For mathematically, I can consider EF is equal to 1. 1 means I can write 1 volt per meter. Electric field, is not it? It's a volt per meter. So that means if this part is equal to 0 somewhere, that particular point for a particular value, say x naught, if I am getting something like that, that particular point I supposed to get maximum field strength, right? And that field strength, if I consider 1 voltmeter, suppose there you are getting maximum, and then as you change your x value here, depending on the phi s, certain value will be there. So you will be getting dropping there like a cosine function, right? Up to the core region, and beyond core region, this equation is no more valid. But you have to pick up the boundary condition, continuity, and then you have to use this equation. Accordingly, it will be flowing. And then you have to pick up this one, it will be flowing, evaluating this thing. But you must be ensured that even though field is there in the cladding, but it is exponentially decaying. That means it is not like oscillating like this. If it is oscillating like this, that means power is something is flowing in this direction, and if it is oscillating like this, power is flowing like this. But it is exponentially decaying, meaning power is not flowing in this direction, right? Suppose for a given field strength, I know instead of EF equal to 1 volt per meter, I am considering, so just for 1 milliwatt, for 2 milliwatt, 5 milliwatt, can I consider this 1 volt per meter? It's not, right? Because as you keep on increasing the voltage, power, so this value, EF value, keep on increasing. But that I can consider some multiplication, some additional part with that, and this one I can consider simply a profile. First we know the profile, how it is distributing. Then if it is 1 milliwatt, suppose if it is 1 milliwatt, this field is like this. If it is 2 milliwatt, it will be something like this. Field strength will be like this. If it is a 5 watt, it will be something like this, right? So field will be increasing, right? So I can just some number I can multiply. Say this number, maybe you can consider P naught. P naught multiplied by some kind of profile. So this P naught actually scaling the power. But the profile, whatever I get a solution from the Maxwell's equation, that remain intact. Is this Fx? Is that correct? Should be only distribution, or we are considering power? So this distribution of only the electric field at a particular point, or you need to integrate? You need to integrate, right? And whenever you are integrating, you cannot integrate only electric field. What you have to do? You have to integrate E cross H star, E cross H, and according to that, half real this one, and dx dy. Is that clear? So that means what I mean to say, for example, if I want to find a power, I need to know something, it is proportional to, right? It should be half real part E cross H star, and if E field, H field is XY dependent, and if it is propagating, suppose Z direction, right? Then what we can write, this has to be integrated. Right? Is this okay up to here? And now we know the power is actually propagating along Z direction, but E and H is a vector. Though electric field in this example, we have only Ey component is there. And instead of H, I can write here mu 0 and maybe write B, because we are just talking about B. Mu I just multiply outside. And then we can write B equal to Bx 0 Bz. So I have E field component Ey, magnetic field component this one, and these are vectors basically.
Sir, can you go back to the previous slide? So here, the power is propagating along Z, not E, right?
Which one?
Within the waveguide.
Yeah.
It is the Poynting vector that is going along Z.
So yes, this is z-axis.
Yes. So
That is
because
z-axis I
it's
consider.
written E. then.
It is z-axis, but right. It is z-axis, but this is a, when I am writing this one, that is not z coordinate. That is a field
What
strength.
is it?
I'm just representing in the same direction. That's it.
Okay, I see.
This is a position coordinate, but this is I'm just expressing, because I cannot just represent electric field in a different axis, right? So
The electric field
also,
will be on a different axis, right? It will be along the Y axis.
it should be, no, it is that thing. That's a good point. So thing is that so you have the Y axis in this direction, right? So it is this direction. This is Y direction. This is your Z direction. This is your X direction. If when I am just sketching this field here like this is the magnitude. That's the strength. Suppose here I have the, at this point at the center, I have the field strength is some 5 volt per meter. That 5 volt per meter is the strength. That value I am showing as a 5 volt per meter as a E naught. But if I ask you, that field is there, but field is a vector.
Yes.
That field strength is there, which direction it is oscillating. If there is an electron, which direction it will experience force, that is Y direction.
Okay.
So it is field is giving in the Y direction, but strength I am just showing along Z. It is just for representation purpose. It is a strength, field strength. Oscillating along, yeah, sure. But distribution also will be along X direction like this. If it is 5 volt, maybe I can consider here it is also oscillating maybe 0.1 volt per meter. Maximum field amplitude will be 0.1 volt per meter. It should not exceed that, but it will be oscillating same frequency. Whatever oscillating here in the same frequency, this is also oscillating same frequency. So good that you asked this question. Many times students actually confuse this. Okay, why this direction? Field is oscillating along Y direction, that is fine. But whenever I am just sketching this, that is just along X direction. What is the field strength I am representing schematically, graphically? It is neither showing Z direction nor oscillation direction. It is just, I'm just considering when I'm just expressing this one, this axis is just now E. That means the magnitude E naught. And that also again oscillating with a terahertz frequency, 200 terahertz frequency. Very fast it is oscillating back and forth. This will be oscillating. And then this shape, if I just at any instant, any mode is propagating like that, this shape will be actually maintained along Z. That is how you have to visualize things. Now come back to this question. So whenever I'm just trying to find out power, you remember that in this case, power will be actually flowing in the Z direction. I need Pz component. That means this is a vector. I have to take cross product and then I have to find Z component. Right? I have to find a Z component of this vector. That Z along that direction, how much is flowing, that is the power carried by the mode. Because X direction, it cannot carry. Can it carry in the Y direction? Power? Because Y direction, it is infinitely extended. So in that case, I have to find this E cross B. And if I can see that whether I have X component exist and Y component exist or Z component exist or not. At any point, you may find that component exists, but we know that power cannot carry this direction and this direction. And only power will be carried if I find a Z direction. In this direction, power will be carried. And in the Y direction, I'm just considering that anything happens, normal plane wave condition, because that direction I'm not considering any component. We'll see that. Let us try to find out E cross B, how it looks like. Let me see. Okay, I have the component. I want to find out E cross B star, right? And then I have to take a real part and take half. That will be your average power, 2 μ0. It's a non-magnetic material. That is actually your power flow, right? Let me try to see what are the components available for TE polarization. Let me see. What I have to do, I have X component, I have to AY component, I have AZ component, then I have 0, EY, 0, because electric field will have only EY component. And I have BX, 0 component, BZ component, right? Let us try to see what are E cross B means here. So I have AX component, that will be actually EY BZ minus 0. That is the X component. And what about Y component? Y component is 0 minus 0. When I am considering Y component, that means I have to multiply this one minus this one, right? So both are 0. And what about Z component? AZ component. This one means I have to multiply this one minus this one. So 0 minus EY BX. Clear? So I have the X component is there, exist. It is waveguide. This is Z direction. So at any point, if you see, there is a X component of power flow is there. There is a Z component of power flow is there. But Y component is not there. So power is not flowing in the Y direction for this TE polarization we are considering. What happens to this X component?
It is radiated as loss in the wave.
No, it will not. It is X component is there at any point. At any point you are getting X component will be there. But you know that there is a counter propagating wave will be also there.
Okay,
So
standing
standing
wave.
wave will be created. So that direction, standing wave will be created. And that's why you see some power, then total internal reflection Kx component is there. That's why you are getting this one. But ultimately it will not go. So we don't need to bother about that. That direction, anything happening, you know that is restricted by the total internal reflection. The mode is actually confined. Power will not go. That assumption we have to consider. But whatever it is there along Z direction, that is actually responsible for the power carried by the mode for 1D waveguide. So that means whenever I am just considering the power flow along Z direction, that I can write is 1 by 2 μ0 real part of, say, whatever the consideration we consider, that E cross B star cross and Z component dx dy. So Z component, what you are getting? 1 over 2 μ0 real part of whatever these things. You have minus EY BX, right? That is what we are getting. EY BX. EY BX dx dy. Right? And this will be star. Obviously, it will be star, right? We have to consider this is star. Then this is star. Right? If there is a phase difference, everything you have to consider. So this is the case. So that is the Z direction, how much power is flowing. But we know that this is actually X dependent function, we know. And this is also, we know that X dependent. No Y dependence is there. Along Y direction, we consider constant. So what we can do, power whenever writing, we have to do integration of this one, dx dy, right? That I missed. So since y direction I don't have any variation for the ey and bx, so I can consider y direction is just 1 meter. dy you are considering just along that direction, just unit length we are considering. That means whatever value I will be getting, that will be, what will be the expression? I will be just writing ey, minus sign you can put, ey bx star dx dy, minus sign. The minus sign will be just handled later. Instead of dx dy, I will write a dx, and then whatever the value you will be getting, I will be writing watt per meter. You know why watt per meter? Because y direction I just consider 1 meter. If it is 5 meter, just multiply. You are considering the y direction's extension is 5 meter, then it will be 5 meter, 10 meter, 10 watt, 5 watt, 10 watt, and so on. So just 1 meter unit we are considering, we get this thing. So ey I know, suppose ey 3 different zone region, I have just considered something like this type of expression for ey, x dependent. Gamma c, gamma s, gamma, all those type of things are known. And I can represent es, ec in terms of ef. Ef can be known, and suppose ef you can find it can vary as a function of whether 1 milliwatt, 2 milliwatt, 5 milliwatt, accordingly it can vary. So that means I can consider here that ui bx d, just since this is also x dependent, this is also x dependent. So ui I know, I have solved. What about bx? How to find bx? We have discussed earlier.
Maxwell's from Maxwell's
You
equation we got.
you use your Maxwell's equation, then you get a relationship between uyx and bxx. Star we can put, right? That is a relationship we can get from Maxwell's equation. So if you just try, I am just writing because time running out. I just put down the expression, what it will be. So I said that the power flow per unit things for P, I just consider T for a mode. I can write 1 by 2 mu 0 will be there, and beta omega will come because of the Maxwell's equation relationship, and then you will be getting ey x square dx. We can write watt per meter if all the expressions are given, because dy I consider 1 meter. So that means I have just expressed bxx in terms of ey, and when I express from the Maxwell's equation in terms of ey, this factor will come, beta by omega. You just check, right? So this is the power flow. And this thing, you know, uyx, again, I have 3 different equations in 3 different zones. For example, I can write 1 by 2 mu 0 beta by omega, and then I can write 0 to d. I can write some ef cosine kappa fx minus phi s dx plus say 0 to minus infinity. I will be writing e to the power gamma s x dx plus d2 plus infinity e to the power minus gamma c x minus d.
Modulus square.
Haha, right, es square. This will be 2. This will be 2, right? ec square, right? Correct. So that will be there. And I know ef, es, ec terms are there, expressions are there. I think this is easy to show. You know that whenever you are integrating minus infinity and plus infinity, their value will be 0, right? The exponential decaying you will be getting. So if you integrate that one, I will be just writing the final equation. You just verify. Okay. So you will be getting something like that. PTE equal to 1 over 4 mu 0. That from the integration it will be coming, beta by omega will be there, and you will be writing EF square, and d will be there, that is the thickness, because you are integrating over 0 to d for cosine, 1 by gamma s, 1 by gamma c. That is your, what would be the unit then? If EF is expressed by volt per meter, beta equal to per meter, omega radian per second, and farad per meter mu 0, then it will be, expression will be watt per meter. That means 1 meter I have considered along y direction. That integration is 1 meter only. But x direction I have just considering. What is this d? Core thickness. What is this gamma s? 1 by gamma s. You know what is that?
Penetration depth in
Penetration depth in the substrate.
substrate.
Mode penetration depth in that substrate. Mode penetration depth in the cover. Right? So these three things we consider D effective. So that means PTE we can consider as 1 over 4 mu 0 beta by omega EF square times D effective, where D effective equal to actual D gamma S gamma C. These two information is very important to know what is the effective thickness of the waveguide. I might have defined a core of D, but mode actually penetrates up to 1 over gamma C gamma S. Actually there depends on what is the mode effective index, what is the NS, and what is the NC, what is the NF. All these parameter depends. Also it depends on lambda. So this is the power. You can easily calculate gamma S gamma C, the expression known, once you know the mode profile, etc. Then you can find, okay, this is my effective thickness. If I want to think of another waveguide in the neighboring region, I should always keep in mind I need at least D effective thickness for this waveguide, and then I can think another things to bring in. You can just try to find out what would be the expression for PTM. It will be a little bit different. This part will be a little bit different. So you can just find out that one also. You derive yourself. Derive yourself. Home task. So with this, I just I think this is a very straightforward starting from Maxwell's equation, but it gives you a lot of insights: modes, waveguide, penetration depth, phase velocity, group velocity, dispersion relation, waveguide dispersion, modal dispersion. All the concept you find in any integrated optics or fiber optics book. In same thing will be just discussing for designing any photonic devices. This dispersion relationship, group velocity, phase velocity, modal, penetration depth, evanescent field strength, power, all those type of things we get 1D. Though practically we don't use 1D waveguide most of the time. Very rare. Practically we'll be using 2D waveguide, but all this concept will help us to understand 2D waveguide, and that will help us enormously to design also 2D waveguide for device applications also.
Sir,
Yes.
Is it possible to create a 1D waveguide? Because
Yes,
everything
possible.
should-
We'll discuss that.
okay.
Actually, whenever it's this silicon on insulator, you can have 1D waveguide always, but there are some limitations. You don't know what is happening in the y direction. For a, whenever you are launching a light, what type of light we are launching, all those practical situations will come.
Here we
Normally-
have assumed y
Yeah.
to be infinite, but there it won't be. So
Normally it will not be guiding because of the divergence, right?
yes.
Longer distance it will not go. Intensity will drop. It is like a circularly, normally spherical wavefront, it will be something like that, circular wavefront. So like something diffraction will come into picture, and that is not useful. But for short distance, for some certain kind of applications we use, that helps also. We'll discuss that. But as far as photonic integrated circuit is concerned, that's a 2D waveguide. We'll discuss that. We'll start that from next class. Any question?
No, sir.
Sir, up to what the quiz syllabus is?
Up to the just before quiz 1 exam, whatever will be discussed, so everything.
Okay,
Okay,
next Monday class.
So whatever will be
Okay.
this is a quiz, just class test type things, but we just keep a record for your performance, etc. That will be seriously considered.
Okay.
But it's just it's not simple examination. You are getting a degree or so. It's just for evaluating how much you are progressing and yourself also, to know yourself, how much you understand, how much this ground level understanding is there. That type of things is there. Okay. So I think don't ask how much, maybe this portion, that portion. The portion will be discussed in the class just before the quiz 1, just until before quiz 1 starting actually. Yeah, that will be the cover. That will cover in the quiz 1. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.